Alright, what is up you guys? My name is Jovani and welcome back to another video. Right now I am in the process of disassembling my old 4.8 and swapping parts over to my new 5.3. So here is my old 4.8. I have yet to completely tear out the pistons and everything to figure out why it's knocking. My suspicion is that there's probably a bent rod in here. Don't know where, but that's my assumption. When I was taking it apart, I did notice a couple loose bolts here and there. Rod caps are all pretty well on there and torqued down. It seems like a couple of the lifters seemed a little loose. Maybe that's where it was knocking, but I really doubt it. It sounded more like an internal rod knock kind of thing. So we'll tear that apart later. But what I have to do right now is swap my oil pan and all the parts onto this 5.3 in order to get this guy running. I think I'm just gonna stick the 5.3 cam back in there. I don't know why I took it out, to be honest. But yeah, so we're gonna swap the parts over to this motor, hopefully get it all built. I'll probably have to make a run to Harbor Freight because as you can see right there, I have a giant hole in my oil pan, and that is from my return line fitting. It never really fit in there properly, and as you may or may not be able to tell, I kind of tried to JB weld it. Didn't really work. It kind of just popped out as soon as I pulled the motor out. So gonna have to get some Aluma weld. I'm gonna try it out, see if it'll at least just hold that fitting in there. That's really all it needs. It's really high up in the pan, so I don't have to worry about leaks or anything really from there. Just gotta hold the fitting in order for it to drain into the pan. So gonna take care of that. I think I'm gonna slap the oil pan on for now, get everything assembled. And this is my current LS kind of graveyard. Okay, so 5 seconds in, I started putting this thing back together. Then I realized that I wanted to actually go ahead and take the pistons out and ring gap them. I don't know what I was thinking, but yeah, I want to just ring gap the pistons real fast. I'm gonna go 30 thousandths on the ring gap because it will be a boost application. As of right now, it's gonna be NA for a little bit until I slap the turbo kit together for this guy. And I wanted to just show you guys this real fast. So this engine wasn't driven at all. As soon as I put it in, it sounded like it was knocking. And you could just see like it is super sludgy, and the oil that came out of it was super clean. So I'm not sure why it's like this. Of course, it's probably old oil from that was left over in the engine. But yeah, so I'm gonna clean this pan out a little bit so that way next time I pull the pan off the new motor, if I have to, I could see if it's still continuing to be this sludgy. I don't see any metal particles or anything, which is good. I think it's more milkshakey, so probably coolant. So not sure why that is, but you know, we'll figure it out. All right, so I got my pistons all out. I just want to show you guys something. When I say that the LS is a good motor, I'm not saying it because I'm partial to it or anything like that. So I want you guys to just take a look at this bearing, right? This motor, I don't know how many miles were on it. The seller told me about 130,000, right? For any motor, that's typically where we consider high mileage, right? Anywhere after 100,000 miles, basically. But look at this bearing, okay? I just want to show you guys this bearing I just pulled out of this piston. There is no obvious signs of scoring. Of course, you're gonna have a little pattern from the crank or whatever. If you look at that bearing's perfectly fine. There's no obvious signs of wear. If I got this bearing and put it next to a new one, you probably wouldn't be able to tell the difference. So that's why I say the LS is a good motor. It's just built right from the factory. The tolerances are very tight on them. There's not a lot of things that can go wrong. These are Gen 3 rods. They're prone to bend under high boost, but on a stock application, I don't see why this motor would ever have to be pulled from the vehicle. You get what I'm saying here? I imagine if this motor was still in the vehicle, it would be running as it did the first day you bought it. Now, closer examination, we look at the pistons. They're obviously dirty, right? And that's all carbon buildup. This motor, it was out of a 2002, I think, so I don't think it was a flex fuel motor. Typically, it can go either way. Ethanol usually tends to leave less carbon buildup, but when you mix it with gasoline, of course, gasoline's always gonna leave carbon deposits on your pistons. So that's no big deal. I'm gonna shine these guys back up, and I'll show you guys what they look like after that, just to take off some of that carbon deposit. I don't really care how they look because they're gonna be inside the motor, obviously. I mean, just take a look at these rods and everything. I mean, they look brand new. Besides the carbon deposits and all that, I mean, these rods, they look amazing. I have them all in order. Obviously, right side of motor, left side of motor, and then If you guys are ever taking one of these apart, just remember that these are called cracked cap rods. That's kind of a tongue twister. Basically what that means is if you look at this rod cap, you'll see that it's not perfectly even up here. It's kind of rough, has edges to it, whatever. But that's because when they make these in the factory, they're made as one piece and then they literally crack them in half. So every rod cap has its own kind of pattern on the rod. So you don't really want to mess those up. So keep everything nice and organized. Who knows, on my last motor build, it could have been that it was probably user error. However, the guy I bought it from did say it was making a sound, which I don't know what sound it was making. I assumed it was the oil pump, so I replaced that, but obviously something else is wrong. So on the other motor, the 4.8, the old 4.8, we're gonna take those ones out and examine the rods later on. But for right now, I'm just gonna clean these pistons off, get them ready to pop back in, gap the rings a little bit, and we should be good to go. All right, so last night I had to go to Harbor Freight, get a couple things. Got some Aluma weld and a new set of feeler gauges because I had no idea where the hell mine are. Checking the ring gaps on this engine, everything is really tight still. So chances that this motor actually did have 120,000 miles is looking pretty good. Ring gap on the top ring is like 22 thousandths. Definitely gonna have to gap those out a little bit more. I was hoping, I know it sounds weird, but I was hoping that this engine would be a little bit more worn out so I wouldn't have to gap all the rings. But it's no big deal, we'll go ahead and do that. But for right now, I'm gonna go ahead and try to Aluma weld this fitting back into my oil pan. So that way we can just go ahead and slap that on once we're done gapping the rings. So yeah, let's get to it. All right, so got the rings all gapped, all the pistons back in. Gotta flip the block over and put the rod caps back on. But we are pretty much good to go. And if you guys are wondering, the way I cleaned these was just basically wire brush them. Some people will say that's wrong, but I don't really give a shit. So, all right, let's go ahead and flip the block over, put the rod caps on, and this motor's halfway there. All right, guys, so we're just about finishing up here on this motor. I've got the rings gapped. I got the pistons back in. I was running into this really weird issue where the crank would basically seize up once I tightened down and torqued down all the rod bolts. Turns out I did have a bearing backwards. I fixed that, and there was just a couple other little clearancing issues with the pistons and rods. So I got that all sorted out. I'm gonna slap the oil pan on. I did try to use the Aluma weld on this pan. However, I'm just assuming that this aluminum pan is some kind of aluminum alloy or something, or simply it's just too thick and I couldn't get it hot enough with the MAP gas. You can see I got this thing hot enough to where I pretty much melted it. I had tried the aluminum weld on it, that's why it looks all lumpy, but so I basically ruined my fitting. But what I've decided to do is I think I have enough room here. This is a 1/2 inch NPT. I'm gonna go ahead and drill this thing out to a 3/4 inch NPT, or thread it basically. And then I'll buy a bigger 10 AN to 3/4 inch NPT and pop that guy in there, and we shouldn't have any more problems. So as you can see, my face is a mess, I'm a mess. This was a lot of work. It took me pretty much the whole day to get that rod clearance issue sorted out. Really, I had to just go back and redo my work over and over and over again. Yeah, I'm pretty drained. The next thing I would like to do is, first off, slap all this back together. Take out the pistons from that engine right there and slap them into this engine over here. I don't know if I've shown you guys this, but this is another 4.8 that I had bought. I had bought it thinking I could just slap it in to the Chevelle or just have a spare motor. What ended up happening is on this guy, and I think it actually is on the other side. Yeah, so if you look at this guy right here, it is, missing some ringland. So basically these pistons need to be replaced. All of them have varying degrees of missing ringland. I'm not sure if they had boost on this motor or what. You know, I bought it as just a basically long block for like 200 bucks, so not terrible deal. If anything, it's just extra parts, but I'm pretty confident that I could take those pistons out of that 4.8, which are good, slap them onto this guy. Hopefully these rods aren't bent, because I believe that those rods might be bent. So whatever the case is, this 5.3 will be going into my 54 Chevy out there. Whatever I decide to do, this Frankenstein between these two motors right here will end up going in the Chevelle. I already have all the bracketry ready for the Chevelle. Basically all I have to do is drop the motor in, and yeah, it should bolt right up, no problem. Now, one last thing I want to talk about is this transmission. So this transmission is a 4L60E. It was the one that was in my truck mounted to my motor. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and use this transmission on the Chevelle, which will be naturally aspirated for a little while. And what I'm going to end up doing is buying a 4L80E for the new 5.3 to go in my 54 Chevy. I know that's gonna delay my time a little bit. I gotta source a transmission and get one, and I'm gonna add a HD2 kit and whatnot. I think once I throw a boost at it, I know that transmission is not gonna hold up, so I'd rather go ahead and upgrade the transmission while the engine's out so I don't have to do this all over again. Yeah, that's pretty much an update for you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Follow me on Instagram and ask me any questions if you guys have them there. And yeah, I'll catch you guys on the next video. See you guys later.